Greetings, mate, and welcome aboard. Stuart Charles here, HomeStudioBasics.com, helping you make sound decisions. So, before we get started, consider subscribing to the channel, like the video, and maybe even join the Patreon if you really think I'm a funny guy.
You really are a funny guy!
Years ago, I was talking to a fella at Audio Advice, and I can vividly remember him saying he swore by listening to speakers over headphones. Now you can imagine my headphone-obsessed ass almost had an aneurysm at the mere thought of that, as it made no sense to me at the time. If you know me, and a lot of you do, you know I've been this way since way back when drugstore headphones may be wetter than a water park. Hey, I was young, so lay off me. Plus, who the heck knew about being an audiophile at age 12? Certainly not me, but the point remains, I couldn't get enough. Headphones were and still are my life.
Hey, I know you're my life.
All right, good.
You're getting too big on me.
You all thought I was joking in the MDR 7506 video about sleeping with them, but I wasn't joking. I said all that to say that for the longest time, I wasn't really into speakers. Of course, I mixed on monitors in the past, but it's not where my loyalty resided. That is, not until recently. Now before you freak out and go unsubscribing, my true heart will always be with headphones. But man, get some high quality monitors and it's lights out. Literally. Nothing compares with cooling out and maxing on the couch or at your desk with some speakers or monitors, and the HS7 is no different. In other words, I think I have a new obsession, at least for the moment. I tend to bounce around from interest to interest, but investing in these was one of the best decisions I've ever made for my studio. And if you're like me, you prefer listening to music raw dog. In other words, mostly neutral, transparent, honest, unrelenting, inexorable, candid, sincere. Insert word salad here. But that's not the main draw here, no siree Bob, it's not. While the HS7 is good for casual listening should you fit the above profile, the reason you're probably watching this is to determine whether or not the HS7 is any good for mixing. Well, if you've been browsing the internet for longer than 6 minutes, you've probably heard about at least the HS5 from everyone and their grandma. The HS7 is simply an upgraded version of 5 with better low-end fidelity and a more powerful package, 95 watts to be exact. One thing you'll certainly be taken aback by is their size. I haven't seen an HS8 in person, but I can only imagine how enormous those are when I consider the HS7. They're large and in charge like Miss Puff, so plan accordingly. I'll link the stands I bought below. In any event, yes, they're fantastic for mixing with a sweet soundstage, exemplary imaging and separation, and overall incredible resolution, timbre, and clarity. In other words, you'll be able to tell a good mix from a bad one almost instantaneously, as they really shed light on the situation at hand. Whether you're mixing your own beats or listening to instrumentals on Spotify, Tidal, etc. I've been able to make much better decisions on the boards with these as they tell me exactly what needs tweaking right away. And while not entirely balanced, the HS7 handled its mid-range rise with class. As you may or may not know, the mid-range is arguably the most important component to get right in a mix, and the HS7 placing some emphasis in the presence region is not only perfectly fine, but it's almost mandatory in my opinion. In this way, I feel like these monitors are like the speaker version of the K702, a headphone that opts for similar tuning, open, crisp sound, and an overall uncolored character. I'd be remiss if I didn't discuss the low end, a point of contention among some who believe that the HS7 doesn't have quite enough. Meh. I haven't felt the need to add a sub or upgrade, but your mileage may vary. For clarification, I mix hip-hop tracks but focus more on the important information above the threshold of 43 Hz, which just so happens to be where the HS7 stops. This is because you can't actually hear frequencies much below that. If you have a larger room, sure, go for the HS8, just make sure you have plenty of space for them. The main point I'm attempting to drive home is that 1, you'll be able to hear everything you need to hear in most cases, and 2, I haven't been able to stop listening to these since I bought them. They're built incredibly well, sound fantastic, but also come with a couple of nifty features. Starting with the back panel, your standard TRS and XLR balanced inputs for use with an audio interface make an appearance, but there's also a room control switch and a high trim switch. These allow you to fine tune according to your room with a flat position, 0 dB for rooms with decent to good treatment, and the -2 to -4 dB position for rooms that aren't as ideal, i.e. excessive bass buildup, low frequency resonances, etc. Experiment with both positions to see which one offers a more balanced sound. In addition, the high trim control fine-tunes the high frequency response, offering further customization to cater to your specific mixing environment. There's a flat 0 dB default setting for a neutral high frequency response, a +2 dB setting if you need some extra sparkle, and a -2 dB setting if you prefer a more subdued response or your room has bright acoustics. Lastly, you'll want to set them up correctly. Opt for an equilateral triangle at roughly ear level pointed at your melon. This ensures you're getting the best soundstage and separation, which will greatly aid in being able to mix down tracks effectively. Though I don't have much of a choice, situating them away from the wall is ideal. This minimizes acoustic reflections, standing waves, and other common issues. In addition, make sure to strategically place some acoustic panels, bass traps, and/or diffusers in areas that are likely to help absorb the sound. I immediately put 2, in addition to many others, right behind the HS7's rear bass ports, as this greatly aids in absorbing as much as possible and minimizing any potential issues. You don't have to cover every square inch of the wall. That's a recipe for disaster as well, and will render the sound empty and anemic. Just use your best judgment and trust your intuition. Just trust your intuition. I'm gonna leave that one out. Finally, make sure your room size is appropriate for the HS7. Medium to larger size rooms work best here, and the more irregularly shaped space you have, the better. You may have noticed that I moved out of my bedroom and into the dining room, a space I seldom use and perfect for a corner setup. Because this room overlooks the kitchen and sits adjacent to my very open living room, the sound has more space to travel and is less likely to present a problem. If you're in a smaller bedroom, I would instead recommend the HS5. For larger rooms with plenty of treatment, the HS8 works well. Overall, the HS7 is a fantastic investment, and I've never felt better. While I love headphones and always will, I can't help but think back to that day at Audio Advice. In retrospect, I can now see exactly why he preferred speakers over headphones, and though my disposition may never completely change, I now, after listening to an HS7, have a much better appreciation for where he was coming from.